Good afternoon, friends. It's Thursday, April 2nd, and I want to share with you a funny moment that happened to me this morning. As I was going through my emails, I was intrigued by the message line in one of my emails. It said, "Public Theology, April 2nd, 2020. Join me tonight." I knew who was sending it, and I thought, you've gone over the edge. Don't you remember that we're still in a stay-at-home order here in California? Are you crazy now? I know that you had been on the front line of isolation since we began this new lifestyle. In fact, he was one of the first pastors that I knew who in early March canceled the worship services on the following Sunday, Saturday afternoon. As I said, he has some health issues, and I wondered why he would be holding a public theology gathering tonight. And I wondered, what public place did he find that would risk everything to allow a bunch of church folks to gather and talk theology? Then I opened the email. Very clever he is. Here's what it said, quote, "Join me at 5 p.m. this evening for public theology. It will be a BYOB, bring your own beverage, on a Zoom call. The topic will be self-care. How are you caring for yourself physically, emotionally, and spiritually while you shelter in place?" Zoom. It's becoming my new best friend. I never heard of this platform until about 2 weeks ago. Now everything is on Zoom. If you haven't heard, Zoom is an interactive, internet-based meeting platform. Don't I sound really smart? I got my first taste of a Zoom meeting late last week when I attended a meeting on Zoom with folks from Luther Seminary in St. Paul, Minnesota. We were discussing Holy Week and Easter celebrations. And now everybody seems to be inviting me to a Zoom meeting. Tomorrow, Bishop Mark of our Sierra Pacific Synod will be holding a Zoom gathering with pastors to talk about celebrating Holy Communion during the time of isolation. In fact, our own Joy Book Club is using Zoom for their small group meeting times. And I am getting so close to getting Zoom so that our steering team can meet to discuss church businesses this week. I understand that some of our schools are using Zoom as the teaching method. Trying to imagine what it means for 30 students gathered around their devices at home as their teacher shares a lesson with them. And who could have imagined this happening? We have changed remarkably in just a few short weeks. God has opened new avenues for us to pursue, new things for us to use and adapt to our own needs as God's people, reaching out and connecting with one another. Is this part of the good news of a forced change? I know that every change brings both good and bad with it, and how we see and adapt to that change makes all the difference. Last evening on my walk with Novak, I stopped to chat with a neighbor who's a high school teacher in Napa. She was honest in her frustration of the changes, frustrated that no school probably would take place for the rest of this academic year, frustrated that she might not have a chance to say goodbye to her students before the summer hits and some of them head off to college, frustrated and wondering, how is this going to work? What will the outcome be? How will she be able to teach while still having her 9-month-old baby at home? I can appreciate the feeling of dread when he offers noises as she's trying to teach. I remember when Alex was a little kid. We did try to keep him in worship. That was challenging times for Joan. It was also a little unnerving for me because Alex was always a vocal kid, even from early on. Or there was that time when another parent went to the nursery to pick up her 2-year-old before the service had fully ended. We all heard Rachel say as the door opened and Mom invited her to come out, "I can't leave until God says so." When I finished the benediction, she said, "Now we can go." Kids, they have that ability to bring a smile, and I will always love Rachel for thinking that I was almost God. But it's that innocence. It's that not being filled with the way things used to be and not able to see how things might be. It's seeing life as a new adventure that makes a big difference. Yes, this isolation has caused us to adapt, to make changes, to go with a new flow. And yes, that brings grief. Grief because what was familiar and comfortable has been put aside for the time being. But I keep going back now in these weeks to a statement a friend of mine made. Mark and I were in a gathering about 3 or 4 years ago as our synod was making a major change in an event that had a long-standing tradition for him. He offered, "Let me just take a few moments to remember the past with fondness, and then I'll move on into the new way we're doing things." Take a few moments. Not to get stuck in the past, but to remember it. A few moments to recall the joys and the sorrows of the old ways that we had just 2 weeks ago. At the end of last year, I ran into Mark and I asked him, how was he doing with the change that had happened? Was he okay with the new venues the synod was using? He said yes. The old venue was important to him. It held 40 plus years of memory, and many of them with his father, another pastor, who brought him along when Mark was a kid to those gatherings. But he said, it isn't the venue, it's the friendships. So true. It isn't the church building. It isn't this place where we gather for worship on a Sunday morning. It's the relationships that we have with one another. Relationships we continue to nurture through new ventures like Facebook and YouTube postings. Nurture through phone calls, emails, FaceTiming. Nurture through Zoom meetings and gatherings. Relationships. That's the key to all of this. Our relationship with each other and with God. Relationships that continue, and they will be restored in a face-to-face gathering in the future. I look forward to seeing you on Sunday. And remember, wash your hands, stay home if you're sick, practice that important social distancing, love one another, and always, of course, be careful out there. If you haven't stopped by, please stop by soon to grab your palms for Palm Sunday. I'm hoping that all of us will have grabbed palms, and when our liturgy offers it in the service on Sunday, you'll be parading around your house singing as we parade around here singing. We'll be united in our parade and our song. And also, don't forget, there's some April through June devotionals, the Portals of Prayer, also outside by the front door when you stop for your palm fronds. See you sometime soon, I hope.